The second rotation that you can start with is I'll have 100 rune power here. That won't really make a difference. So the second one is if you feel like you can't really get to your target, then you can either use a Death and Decay or an icy or chains of ice. So I use chains of ice when I'm at my target. I use plague strike, and then I use a festering strike, and then I use a blood strike or a blood boil. And with this rotation, you're not really utilizing your empowered weapon because there's so much time in between your globals. You're using more globals because you're using one rune with chains of ice, you're using one rune with blood boil, you're using another rune, two runes with festering strike, and then you have your plague strike and your D&D. And you're using more globals, therefore you don't have as much time to really utilize your empowered weapon to the fullest effect. And so those are the two basic openers that you can do whenever you're starting an arena match. And then a lot of people say, what do you really do for the biggest damage? Well, like the damage rotation is really a priority system. So whenever we have our frost runes and you're being kited, then chains of ice to get to your target, and then icy touch if you still can't get to your target. This will make it so that you keep on refreshing your runes to death runes, and you can really utilize those death runes when you get to the target. For your frost runes, you have your blood boils and your festering strike, which you can use in conjunction with either blood boil or icy touch if you can help it, because it's a lot more efficient to use festering strike as it converts the runes a lot faster. There are situations when you may want to spam icy touch and blood boil when the target has a lot of parry and you just don't want to deal with it. So that's one exception to the rule. When you're using icy touch as well, you can kind of spam icy touch if you really have a comp where you don't have any dispels, or you really want to get rid of a lot of buffs so that when an important buff does happen, you can instantly dispel it. So for mages, for example, when I constantly dispel them, I make sure that as soon as they pop Icy Veins, I can get it off. And that's 20% of their haste or so gone right there. So in terms of Unholy Runes, we have Death and Decay whenever we can't get to a target, or there's 3 targets. It's mostly for when you are getting kited and when there's multiple targets in the field. And then you want to use your Plague Strike, obviously, and your Scourge Strike when you don't have any, when you have your dots on the target. And as well, when you have your proc trinkets up and all that, then just go in ahead and refresh your Plague Strike. You also make sure that when you use your Death Coil, you're not really capping your runic power at 100, because you're going to be losing out on the runic power that you could have gained from using your runes again. And then I'm going to show you 2 little tricks that you can use. And although these might not be the most effective, these are really good things that you can kind of incorporate into your damage rotation. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use both of my Festering Strike, and then I'm going to use both of my Unholy Runes right now. And once I use my Unholy Runes, I'm going to use Icy Touch once, and then I'm going to use this Icy Touch, and that actually converts this rune into a Death Rune. And the reason why this happens is because when Icy Touch is using a Blood Rune, for some reason it treats it as getting a Death Rune for Unholy. So that is something that you can really take advantage of when you are doing your damage rotation. A second thing that you can also take advantage of is when your Blood Rune and your Frost Rune are on cooldown, and both of your Unholy Runes are on cooldown, and you have 5 stacks of Blood Tap, if you use Blood Tap, it's actually going to convert the Unholy Rune to Death Rune, and this way you can have all 5 Death Runes and then use 5 Death Runes all at once. And this is something that is really, really nice to have because it's all about the Necrotic Strike. That's the bread and butter of an Unholy DK. So defensives, everybody's talked about defensives, so not really going to worry about those. The only thing is knowing when to be offensive and defensive. And when you're really being defensive, and you really have to be, just spam Chains of Ice, spam your conversion, D&D to get more runic power, and make sure you don't use your Death Coil as much as possible if you can help it. So when the target is at 50%, what I really like to do is, let's say this target dummy is at 50%, and these 2 death runes are about to be popped up. What I end up doing is I end up using my Soul Reaper, my 2 death runes, and then using Death Coil as much as possible to bring the target below 35%, along with my partner, and then in conjunction with that, that will make it so that they have less than 35% and the Soul Reaper will end up hitting them. So I'm going to be going through my macros really quickly, and these macros, everybody's gone through these, so I'm going to go through them really quickly. So here's a conversion macro where I can cancel it if I hold Alt and F, and I just use it with F. And the reason why I have this exclamation point is because it lets me spam it 2 times without canceling it and giving me double the heal for double the runic power. I actually got this alt code from snacking, and I've found myself keeping conversion up when I didn't want to, and it was being really ineffective because it was draining runic power, and I don't want that to happen. So here is a macro for gripping to my pet. This is what I'm notorious for. Everyone says that my pet actually does more of the work than I do, and people don't really like me for that, but it is what it is. And then I have the regular pet stuff. I have a pet to mushroom, or I have a grip to mushroom. I have stun 1, 2, 3, and then for my own macros, I have a focus dark sim. I have a death coil, which makes my pet attack the target that I'm on. I have empowered weapon macroed in with my alchemist flask, so I can be a lot more lazy with my alchemist flask and not have to worry about that. I have my focus mind freeze. I have my death grip, focus death grip rather, my focus strangulate, which turns into an asphyxiate when I spec asphyxiate, and I use this normally in 5s and RBGs. Pet that follows me, this is really good for when you want to have your pet kick, for example, because your leap has a range just to target me. This is my entire hand rotation, so all my damage cooldowns. This heals myself when I use Death Coil. This just uses my Death Pact. This cancels everything that I could have stolen or gotten from Dark Simulacrum, and it also casts Horror Winter. This is my Focus Sleep and my Focus Gnaw, which I don't actually spam this when I use it. I press it once when I want to do the kick, and then when I want to do the gnaw, the focus gnaw, I spam it so that it gets the focus gnaw. What I can do is when I use the focus leap, I can just pet attack, and it does the leap, but it doesn't do the gnaw. And it's just nice to have both of these in the same because I don't like having 2 binds. This macro might not work for you, but this is to heal my pet. So as you can see here, over here, when I press Alt, it turns into a Death Coil, and this Death Coil will heal my pet. And then when I just have 4, it just makes it a Festering Strike. And then I have my Blood Tap bound into my Dark Transformation because it does cost a rune. So in case I don't have any Unholy Runes at the time, I can make sure that I can transform my pet. And transforming your pet is like the #1 priority because it really does help a little bit. And then I have Pet Autocast Claw. I just had this since season 13 or so when it wasn't auto-casted. And it was on a different cooldown, or different like GCD than Gnaw. And I have a cast in Gnaw. So in terms of add-ons, there are 3 major add-ons that I'd say would really help you out. I have Necrotic Track, which is that necrotic bar that you saw at the bottom, and you can configure it over there, and I basically explained to you what it does. There's the Yuri's Rune display, which is the runes that I have over here, and it makes that I don't like having my runes on the top of my screen. I like them in a place where I can actually see them. So it's a nice configurable rune display. Then the last one, which I actually get a lot of questions about, is my extra cooldown. And extra cooldown is an add-on that tracks your trinket procs and your empowered rune weapon, but it doesn't come with the empowered rune weapon. So what you need to do is you actually need to configure it so that it shows it. So I'm going to leave this up here for about 5 to 10 seconds. And I'm going to show you that with the advanced option, you can put in the spell ID, which is this spell ID, which I've gotten from Wowhead. And then I put in the appropriate information, which I got from the comment section. And this is extremely accurate for tracking your unholy strength. And your unholy strength will always be shown when you have it like this. So that really concludes the bread and butter part of the guide. And so I'm going to be showing you really advanced techniques really in RBGs and arenas. So I'm going to first start with arenas. So here I have myself stealing a blink. Now I'm going to be using blink in such a way where you may actually not even believe how I use it. I'm just going to be waiting on this video right here. Hopefully it loads. It says Flash isn't responding. That's just great. Okay, so, oh my lord. Oh my god. Right. Okay. So what I wanted to show you was that when you steal a blink, instead of using an asphyxiate, you can use an asphyxiate or not to steal a blink. And the way that you can use it is when you steal the blink, don't hold on to your blink. You may not have to use it right away. The best time to use it is when you get Frost Nova'd, and the Frost Nova is really there so that the mage closes distance. But what if you grip the mage, you blink away from the mage, and then grip him again when the paladin is on the other side of the arena? Suddenly, a situation where the mage is trying to actually get closer to his paladin, it ends up being a situation where the paladin is so far away from him that the mage actually takes a lot more damage than he needed to. And so here's a situation where the paladin actually has Speed of Light open right now. And what I'm going to do is, can this not work? All right, so let me do this. So what I have here is I have the mage targeted the entire time. I have the paladin right here on the focus frame. And now what I see here is the paladin is actually using Speed of Light. And what I can do right here is I can tell that my priest right here is going to get run at and possibly CC'd. So as you see at the bottom of your screen, the paladin is running right towards him. I end up using my Dark Simulacrum right here and stealing the Hand of Justice. What I end up doing is I wait for the DR of Hand of Justice, and then I use the Hand of Justice on the paladin, and shortly afterwards my priest chastises. After the chastise, the priest ends up fearing the paladin, and suddenly a CC chain, which might not even have been a long CC chain, ends up being a CC chain which is actually really long. And shortly afterwards, I use the asphyxiate, and I think I even forced the ice block right here or shortly afterwards. But that is a situation where you look at your positioning of the paladin. You see that he's really close to your priest or your healer, and he's trying to get to the healer to throw some CC on him. So throw a Dark Simulacrum on him. Even if it doesn't actually hit the target that you want to hit, it doesn't matter because you've at least tried to steal the CC. There's a lot of times where you get lucky with the CC that you steal, and it's really nice to have. And now, here's a situation where you have your double DPS versus a healer DPS, and your priest or your healer is getting a CC'd a lot. So what I end up doing is I've already forced a bunch of cooldowns. I've already forced one ice block. The only thing that he can do now is he can ice block again. So what ends up happening is I end up getting sapped. My priest chastises him. He fears him. He trinkets the fear. Meanwhile, I get the Ring of Frost. The mage tries to polymorph. I'm stunned. So me feeling like I'm in trouble, I'm going to stun the mage and I'm going to Dark Simulacre him in hopes of getting a blink so that when they use cooldowns I can blink away to my priest and not be in any trouble. But something funny ends up happening right afterwards. So I end up stunning the priest or the mage using Dark Simulacrum at the exact same time and stealing a block. And as soon as he steals the block, he uses Frost Orb, and I completely mitigate all the damage that could have went out on me.